Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays, hosted by someone's favorite film buff, Nathan. I love movies and I want to share that with you. From old originals to cult classics and foreign favorites, along with straight up drivel, WWW is your place for all things movies. Stick around and we'll leave you with a movie to watch over the weekend with your family or that special someone. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome to What to Watch Wednesdays. My name is Nathan, the host of What to Watch Wednesdays, the show where we tend to talk about 3 movies all in one show. That sounds really good as an intro, honestly. I don't like calling myself the host with the most anymore because I could never figure out how to end that joke. But saying that we're going to be talking about 3 movies is in fact correct and very easy to say on repeat. So I'm just going to keep saying that from now on. Before we jump into the 3 movies on our watch list tonight, I wanted to take this opportunity to wish all of you listening a happy early Valentine's Day. Don't worry, there's a good reason for it. I know today is Wednesday and it's 2 days away, but it felt appropriate to wish you all a happy Valentine's Day. This coming from a person who tends to not like Valentine's Day. So you may be asking, why on earth are you talking about it then? Good question. It's because the 3 movies on our watch list today are in fact themed around Valentine's Day. I may not like the holiday and what it stands for, but I do in fact like theming, and I really enjoy theming my picks for the week around a central holiday, especially if it's happening during the week or is going to be happening at some point soon. And in that case, I decided to talk about 3 particular romance movies. Now, of course, since I don't exactly like Valentine's Day, you may think I don't like romance. I'm not going to correct you, you're not wrong. I don't exactly like romance movies. What I do like are movies that are about something specific and just so happen to have a lot of romance in them. I tend to like movies that are not about just romance, but have a strong, heavy overtone of romance. As a good example from last year, I talked about the movie Princess Bride, which the central story of that movie is about romance. But it's about a lot more than just romance. It's about fantasy, action, and excitement. So without further ado, the 3 movies on our watch list tonight will reflect that theme, with the first being The Graduate from 1967, the second being Scott Pilgrim vs. the World from 2010, and the third being Say Anything from 1989. These 3 are some of my favorite movies that just so happen to involve romance, either to a massive degree or a high-level degree. Or more so should I say, the last 2 are my favorite, because as it turns out, before making my list for the week, I didn't know that I would enjoy our first movie as much as I did, which will be The Graduate. So stick around for that. 88 won the Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our first movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at The Graduate from 1967, available to watch now on Tubi. For the basic plot summary of The Graduate, we follow Benjamin Braddock, a recent college graduate, because he's the graduate in the movie The Graduate. He's the main character of The Graduate, and he's a graduate. Do you get why it's called The Graduate yet? Essentially, Benjamin Braddock begins a casual relationship with a much older family friend, a woman by the name of Mrs. Robinson. Before we go any further, let me acknowledge the fact that when I say a casual relationship, I mean as in Benjamin is not married, but Mrs. Robinson is married. And if you don't know what I'm implying when I say any of this, you are too young or do not understand what I'm trying to say. And I'm not going to spell it out for you. If you are interested, I recommend looking up the plot summary of the movie so that you can figure it out, because that's about as far as I can go with it. So, as we move on to the rest of the movie, just keep that kind of in the back of your mind, which is that this movie comes with that sort of caveat, which is that it's not exactly an easy relationship to talk about, and that doesn't make this the easiest movie to talk about. I kind of have to dodge that big train that hits you right in the face, because that's the main plot, right? Thankfully, I will at least say that there is part of the plot where Benjamin develops a more romantic interest in Mrs. Robinson's daughter, who is closer to his age. But that doesn't mean that the main plot is difficult to move past from whatever that sentence was. Doesn't really matter. Here's the point. When talking about these kinds of situations, even in movies and when it comes to real life, there's a very big difference between that and how it's represented in a Hollywood movie. One of the big differences is that it tends to rely on the actor or actress involved in both of these things. And let me tell you right now, one of the big things that The Graduate achieves is having a very charismatic actor playing Benjamin Braddock and a very charismatic woman playing Mrs. Robinson. We're going to start with Mrs. Robinson because that's the one that you kind of need to nail in order for this to not feel absolutely horrifying. Anne Bancroft is incredibly emotionally nuanced. She embodies a very crafty older woman who always feels slightly unattached from everything she is doing. While it doesn't exactly excuse her actions as a character in the movie, I can at least give the actress herself immense props for being able to handle such a difficult and interesting and very nuanced idea of a person. And notice I'm not saying character, I'm saying person. Mrs. Robinson is definitely a person. She feels like a real person. It's rather unfortunate because of that, but it doesn't exactly feel like just some other movie character. It feels like an actual real human being that you are watching change and develop over the course of the movie. And the same can go for our main character, that being Benjamin Braddock. Benjamin is played by none other than, what's his name? Oh yes, Dustin Hoffman. If you've never heard of that name, Dustin Hoffman, before, oh boy, let me tell you, Dustin Hoffman is an enigma to me, a absolute madman in my eyes. I have never fully understood what makes him so magical until I watch him in any movie I've ever seen him in. The best example would be Rain Man. I never understood the hype surrounding Dustin Hoffman until I finally sat down and watched Rain Man. And when I saw him as Rain Man, because he did play the character Rain Man, surprisingly, unsurprisingly actually, it's called Rain Man. But this is all related. When I saw Dustin Hoffman being the Rain Man, I fully understood everything about him, everything about the hype surrounding him, about the perception of him in Hollywood, the way people tend to look at him, made sense to me. He's a genius. He's an absolute genius actor. So going back to what basically made his career, the movie that started it all for him, that being The Graduate, I was still blown away at the fact that it redefined everything I knew about Dustin Hoffman. Here he was thinking I was going to say I was unsurprised that it basically confirmed everything I knew about Dustin Hoffman. Nope. No, I still don't know what it is about him, but I know that it's amazing. I know it's magical. I know it's true. It's pure. It's real. Something about Dustin Hoffman is there, and you can feel it all throughout The Graduate. It's something about his shyness, something about his awkwardness, something about how he still manages to get through things. And the way he talks, the way he acts, it all just blends together into this wonderful, confusing whirlwind of what is going on, why am I so attached to him? But I'm not complaining that I'm attached to him. That's the real way I can sum it all up for you. If you are not familiar at all with what I'm talking about, I highly recommend watching The Graduate or Rain Man for that matter, or anything with Dustin Hoffman in it. You'll probably get that impression, and if you don't, I'd be very surprised. I think I will continue to be surprised by Dustin Hoffman for the rest of my life, even after he's long gone. To move on from that massive tangent, I want to say that there are a couple other things about The Graduate, aside from the acting, that make it stand out. One of the main things is the music. The music itself is composed of essentially needle drops, which is essentially when you take pre-existing pop songs and put them in a movie. Not just pop songs, but it tends to be done with pop songs, or it's like when you hear an AC/DC song in a modern movie. That's essentially how I can describe a needle drop to you. A lot of the needle drops that exist within The Graduate are songs by Simon and Garfunkel. Yes, that's right. Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel did in fact have music that was in The Graduate, and arguably The Graduate is what made their music a lot more popular, because people heard it in The Graduate, because it was a very successful film, both financially and critically. So it's got that going for it. And when we go to break, you will also hear one of the big songs from the movie that was actually kind of put into the movie because the director really wanted it, and Paul Simon was busy working on it when the movie was being made, which is a song called Mrs. Robinson. But before we get to that, I wanted to bring up two other points. The first is the fact that the cinematography in The Graduate is downright artistic. It is a massive achievement at how good it is, especially for 67. I've seen movies from 1967. Not all of them can pull off this level of artistic cinematography. And because of that, it also feels it feels like an extra element to an already really good and complex and interesting story that just kind of elevates it a lot further than it needs to be. And the best thing I can say about The Graduate, the biggest reason I would recommend it to you if you're listening to this, is I understand The Graduate, and I like The Graduate, and I enjoyed my time watching The Graduate. But I don't think I fully get it. In a good way. I feel like if I watch it 4 more times, I'll probably have a better grasp on the entire meaning behind The Graduate. That's how deep and complex it feels. I was sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like, man, I really liked it. I really got the main core idea of it. And then I sat back even further, and I was like, no, I don't. Wait, hang on. What's the real message here? I feel like there's a real deep message that I got to dig for. If that doesn't sell you on it, I don't know what will. Highly recommend The Graduate. It's interesting that I talk about a movie where you'd have to dig deep and watch it multiple times to understand it. Because when we come back from the break, our second movie on the watch list is definitely the opposite of that concept. So stick around for that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. For our second movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Scott Pilgrim vs. the World from 2010, available to watch now on Max. And for the rest of this review, if I ever say Scott Pilgrim, I'm either referring to the main character, Scott Pilgrim, or I am referring to the title of the movie. And you'll just have to figure it out, because I'm not saying Scott Pilgrim versus the World every single dang time. Just internalize that. For the basic plot summary of Scott Pilgrim, we follow our main character, Scott Pilgrim, as he has his life changed forever when he meets the quite literal girl of his dreams, a girl by the name of Ramona Flowers. And when I say girl of his dreams, I mean she's literally in his dreams, and then in real life he meets her. And he's like, "You're the girl from my dreams!" Quite literally. It's a very funny idea. What's even funnier is that after he meets Ramona and asks her out in order to have her be his girlfriend, he ends up being confronted by all of her ex-lovers, all of her ex-datees, all 7 of them. And Scott Pilgrim must now fend for his life against these 7 evil exes. That's what they're called, quite literally called the 7 evil exes. Okay. So, many of you are familiar with Scott Pilgrim. But for those of you who aren't, you're probably sitting there going, what did you just say? What are the words that just fumbled out of your mouth and into my ears? I don't think I understand exactly what you're saying. Is this a real thing? This can't be a real thing. And I will admit, writing out the plot of Scott Pilgrim feels like one of the dumbest and weirdest things I have ever written down for reviewing on What to Watch Wednesdays. I'm not even kidding. It's up there. It's really up there. So now I need to ask, why do I like this movie? Why does a lot of people like this movie? Why is it really good? One word that will then branch out into so many others. Are you ready? Style. Style. Style over substance? No. Style in and of itself. Let me tell you right now that Scott Pilgrim is one of the strangest mashups for a movie I have seen. It is a punk rock, comic book, arcade, Edgar Wright action comedy. All in one massive bundle. If you're not familiar with Edgar Wright, he's the one who directed Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. He also directed Baby Driver. He's a well-known, very high-level director who makes a lot of funny, crazy artistic films all in one package. If I'm being honest here, for a movie that is about punk rock, comic books, and arcade games, if I was going to pick a director, I think I'd pick Edgar Wright. He was a really good pick. His style fits this general idea so well. And on top of that, with such a crazy idea of fighting off evil exes to get to date a girl, I think it makes sense that it's an arcade game. It's like a fighting game. It's like boss battles, right? If you're not even familiar with arcade games, you know those like the big people with like the big attacks that have a lot more health bars than the other enemies. It's like that's how that works. More health bars, bigger health bars, whatever technical terms. This is a movie review show. We're not going to get into video game stuff. The point of the fact is that along with it is a very heavy emphasis on comic booky text flashing across the screen like walk, pow, zam, zoom, whatever, click when they're flicking a light switch. It's really fun. And then we have things like punk rock. Severe amounts of punk rock. It is so punk. I gotta admit, I didn't realize how punk it was until I rewatched it. I was like, this is extremely punk rock. I love punk rock now. And I love Scott Pilgrim even more because of how punk rock it is. I will say that the biggest reason I think this movie is seen as good is because it has a cult following. That's the main reason. I think cult movies tend to be put on a pedestal, and I've had experiences sometimes. I won't go into any specifics, but I've definitely watched cult classic movies that I haven't exactly liked. Scott Pilgrim falls into the category of the movies that are cult classics that I absolutely adore because of all the reasons that those cults actually like them. When I say cults, I mean the fans of the movie. I can understand where they're coming from, not only because I really like video games, I like punk rock, and I like comic books, but because of how good of a movie it is to begin with. It takes all of those things and merges them so seamlessly into an absolutely wonderful experience visually and auditorially, and just overall in terms of just a thing you can watch. It works. On top of that, all of the music in and of itself, when it's sung, is really good. A lot of the actors sometimes sing the songs, and the acting itself is really good. It's got a massive all-star cast. I'm not even going to list all the people who are in here, but Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead do a great job as Scott Pilgrim and Ramona Flowers. They are a great couple. Absolutely wonderful. They work together seamlessly. It's almost like I can't narrow down all of the reasons that I really, really like Scott Pilgrim. But if I had to, if you were forcing me to narrow down all of the reasons why Scott Pilgrim is good, I can give you 3. I can tell you right now that it is an extremely memorable movie. If you watch it once 3 years ago, like I did, and then rewatch it 3 years later, you're going to remember pretty much every plot beat and every moment from it, and every cool action sequence, every crazy twist, every insane moment that happens with as much clarity as you had when you saw it for the first time. It's funny. It's hilarious. Edgar Wright is really good at visual comedy as much as he is at auditory comedy in terms of dialogue. That doesn't mean that Edgar Wright is always the one writing the dialogue, but he presents dialogue in such a fun way. It's a bit difficult to not like how every single actor in an Edgar Wright movie delivers their dialogue. It's just all done perfectly. He knows how to work with actors. That's the point. And it's the entire team worked so well together, which leads nicely into the third reason why Scott Pilgrim is good. Because it throws so much at you, it has a chance of crushing itself beneath its own weight, beneath its own, not standing on its own 2 feet, with its punk rock, its arcade, and its comic book influences. And yet, despite throwing the kitchen sink and the wall and the doors and the floor, and I don't even know, the entire house at you, not just the kitchen sink, in spite of throwing all of that at you. Scott Pilgrim doesn't not work. It works perfectly. It blends together. It mushes perfectly. No collision, no crash course. All of it merges. If that isn't a strong recommendation from me, again, I don't know what is. And you know what else I'd give a highly strong recommendation to? The third movie on our watch list. Stick around after the break where we go into that. 88.1 The Burg, your movie central. Welcome back to What to Watch Wednesdays. And for our third and final movie on the watch list tonight, we will be taking a look at Say Anything from 1989, available to watch now on Hulu. For the basic plot summary of Say Anything, we follow Lloyd, a normal guy who's just graduated high school, and Diane, a straight-A student who has also graduated high school. They graduated from the same high school. Lloyd, being an absolute mad lad, decides to ask out Diane after they've already graduated. You missed the prime opportunity to ask her out there, buddy. Is it really going to work? Do you really think this is going to work? To everybody's surprise, it works. She says yes. And the rest of the movie is dedicated to their relationship. Now, I need to address the elephant in the room. For those of you who are aware or unaware, or partially aware, or pretend like you're unaware and then know exactly what I'm talking about, for all kinds of awareness, you may have heard of this one scene in a movie. You've seen a reference to this scene before, most likely. This scene of a character standing there in kind of a tan trench coat, holding up a boombox and playing the song In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel, I believe. So you've probably recognized that scene, right? Well, that scene comes from this movie. It does. It absolutely comes from this movie. I need to acknowledge that because I'm about to tell you right now why this movie deserves a lot more recognition than for just having that scene in it. I find it so annoying sometimes when there are movies out there that have that one memorable moment and then people tend to get this idea in their head that it might be generic, it might not be all that worth seeing because it just has the one memorable scene in it and then it's not really all that worth it after that. I don't know what those people are talking about. Why would you say that? Say Anything. I nearly said The Graduate. Why was I'm all over the place. I'm always all over the place. It's what makes the show fun. Say Anything is honestly so much more than just that one particular scene. You may think that it would be generic and overplayed, especially for a 1989 rom-com movie. Let me go through some proof and some logic to explain to you directly why this movie is not just some generic rom-com from '89. The first big culprit, the first thing that always annoys me whenever I see any references to it, in terms of its description, in terms of the way it is often described, possibly in trailers, is that Diane's father is possessive and controlling, and he is the main antagonist. Technically speaking, but from that description alone, it sounds like he's a one-dimensional character who just doesn't let his daughter date anybody and doesn't let her go. And it's like, no, that's not at all what her dad is. Her dad is a good father, a good parent to her for a good majority of the movie. There's some things here and there, sure, but to imply that he's just some one-dimensional parent who doesn't have anything more to give than, no, my daughter, you can't date that ruffian, is really he's really just mushing down what the character actually is. Diane's father is a really good, well-rounded character. He has depth and meaning, and he lets his daughter out of the house. He lets her date. Oh man, how do I give a good example? Oh, I know. When Lloyd asks her out, he asks, hey, do you want to go to a party? And she's like, sure, I'll go to a party with you. And her father's like, okay, you can go to a party. And when she's at the party, she calls her dad and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just checking in. I'm at the party still. And he's like, oh, cool. Be back before dawn. Or be back by dawn. I'm sorry. How is that a controlling parent? My parents are not controlling at all, personally. I don't think they're controlling at all. They tend to set the curfew of 1 a.m. You're telling me that you think a father is controlling when he is telling his daughter, who has just graduated high school, hey, please be back before the sun rises in the morning? And when she shows up late, probably a bit later in the morning, he doesn't even bring that up. He's like, were you safe? What are you talking about? That's so not one-dimensional. It annoys me to no end that I've gone on about it for the last 3 minutes because it's important to understand that is not what the character is. And when he is, it's near the end of the movie, first of all. And that is a partial spoiler, but not really. You'll need to understand exactly why he is that way. I'd recommend watching the movie if you're still not getting what I'm trying to say here. He is not like that for most of the movie, and I'm so annoyed that people call it that. On top of that, our two main characters, again, have already graduated high school. That's not a dumb, it doesn't make it a dumb high school romance movie. The Breakfast Club is more of a high school movie than Say Anything is. Okay, because it takes place when the characters are actually in high school. These characters have already graduated. It's different. It feels different. It has more of a melancholic feel to it because of that. I feel like I'm getting angry at this for no particular reason other than I want to hammer home just how ungeneric this movie is, because at the end of the day, this movie has achieved feeling funny all the way through, feeling like it's about something, probably companionship, if I'm being completely honest with you, having something to say about what it's about, that being companionship. It feels original, tangible, and more true than most of any romance movies I've ever seen. I had it in my mind 3 years ago when I first watched this movie that this was going to be one of my favorite romance movies of all time. And that has not changed after rewatching it. So many movies I've seen have come close, but I've always held Say Anything as one of my favorites. I still do. It is so good. And again, it's so difficult to always articulate why I think a movie is good, but I feel like I've done a decent enough job. If you know what generic is, you'll understand why Say Anything stands the test of time despite being released in 1989. All I can say after that is I highly recommend watching Say Anything. It is worth your time. John Cusack's so good as Lloyd. I love his character. It's so good. With all that being said, thank you all for listening in to What to Watch Wednesdays tonight. I will be back next Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. here on 88.1 The Burg, as I tend to be. Alongside that, please follow What to Watch Wednesdays at What to Watch Wednesdays, all one word, no caps, no spaces. I almost said spaces, all one word, no caps, no spaces, on Instagram and YouTube. Again, thank you all for listening. I will be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. to tell you all what to watch. Good night.